I don't call him Smees. All I can think about is like the fat pirate in Peter Pan. Whenever I hear you say Smee, I don't know why, but I always
I'm not up to speed on my Peter Pan nomenclature. Who is Smee the name of a character in Peter Pan?
He's like Captain Hook's bumbling idiot sidekick. Smee.
So the exact opposite of a subject. Wait, is there a subject though that Smee knows really well?
He knows Captain Hook really well. That's it.
Okay. Welcome in. This is AI for Restaurants, a show where two practitioners who actually use AI every single day and work with restaurants every single day talk about what's really working in the industry and have some fun along the way. As always, I have my trusty co-host, Aaron.
Hello. If my voice sounds especially clear this week, it's because there is less beard in the way.
I'm going to be honest with you. I miss it a little bit. I really do. Mostly because I don't have the ability to grow one. And speaking of me, I'm Sterling Douglas, co-founder and CEO at Showly. And this is AI for Restaurants. I have a fun one today, Aaron. One of the first questions is, what exactly is an agent anymore? Because I've got sub-agents in my head. Claude is talking about agents. Then I've got other products telling me they have agents in their product. How would you define that?
I think fundamentally, it really comes down to the semantics of the word agency, that it has the capacity to act. And so a ChatGPT conversation that summarizes a document, you gave it back to you, where you go take action from what you learned, not an agent. An agent is something that when it is invoked, it goes and does a job, completes that job, and reports back on what it did. And so a sub-agent in Claude parlance is the main thread. You're working on something and it says, hold on, I'm going to spin up a sub-agent to go read the docs. And it reads the docs and it comes back to the main thread and says, I've read the docs. I found the thing that I think is interesting to you. And here it is. It had a job to do. It went and did it. It came back and it either is accepted or not. And so you might have an agent that sends you a weekly update without you having to tell it to send you a weekly update. It's not exclusively automation, but it really is. I'm going to give this thing a task. I'm not going to watch
start,
it.
a middle, an end.
Yeah, I'm not going to observe it. It's not going to have a conversation with me. It is going to go do it. It's going to finish. It's going to come back. And I think that when you apply that more generally, you start finding that there's tons of things that you can throw into that kind of framework.
One thing that I've been doing a ton of lately is on the agent front. So I always had this massive confusion in my head. I'm like, hey, there's this thing I want to do. Like, I want to do this thing with Google search ads. Well, do I make a Google search ad agent, or do I make a Google search ad skill, or do I have a Google search ad project, or do I just create like a couple MD files that are like knowledge guides for it? Do I just create scripts? Is there a whole application? And what I've kind of been centering around as I think about agents is when that separation of context is important. So when you talk about, you have something to do, it goes and does it, and then it reports back. I think there's a little bit I would add there is that it does it in its own context window. And so it's not maybe conflated or have bias from the things that might have been working in your main session.
Yeah.
And that's why sub-agent can be helpful.
When we're talking about agents in the terms of like how Claude Code works and creating sub-agents or a team of agents and all that kind of stuff, to me, there's three reasons to do it. One is that you want to create a context window that is other than the main one. And the best example I can give of that is a devil's advocate. Like, I don't want you to know all of my opinions. I want you just to look at the work product we've made and tell me what's wrong with it. And if you are subject to the reason I told you to build it that way in the first place, then you're going to come back with agreement with with the decisions we made. I just want you to look at the output and tell me if it's dumb. And so I don't want you to know what we said.
I'm trying to figure out which one is more famous right now, you in the restaurant industry or the devil's advocate skill that you gave, because I stole that from you. I ran /pillage, my favorite skill. I grabbed /DA. I run it all the time. It gets brought up all the time. I'm seeing it brought up in LinkedIn posts. I'm seeing it brought up from my team who's using it more. I love that skill. And I think that it's almost as famous as
it will surprise you none at all to learn that I didn't make it. I stole it. I stole it from our CTO, Darren, who, for all I know, did make it. But yeah, it's a great idea. But the whole point, back to your context window, is it can't be privy to all the good reasons you had for making it dumb in the first place. The second reason to create a sub-agent is parallelization. I need to go do this thing 100 times, and I can either wait for you to do it 100 times, or I can say make 100 of you to do it once, and now I go 100 times faster. The third one that I had was to preserve context window. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you have a CSV with 100,000 lines in it, and you want Claude to open up that document and find a needle in a haystack. And you need an LLM to do it. You can't just use grep. You need an LLM to actually put the whole thing in the context window to find the one thing that doesn't belong. And then you're going to work on that one thing. Well, if you did that in the main thread, you would now have that entire document in the context window indefinitely. And consequently, if you can put it into a subagent and say, go find the needle in this haystack, the subagent comes back and says, here is your needle. The haystack isn't in the context window anymore. So it's just context window preservation. So, okay, now back to the thing that you're talking about, which is the team of agents and blocking and order of operations and stuff. I definitely have some of the more robust things that I've built where I'm trying to create workflow that has stages and all that kind of stuff.
Yep.
And if you keep iterating in a single skill that has like step 1 do this, step 2 do this, step 3 do this, you actually end up fighting some of the training in the system prompt of the LLM, because the system prompt has baked into it the concept of be as efficient as possible on burning tokens to meet the user's need. Yep. And if what you're saying is, oh, I want you to log everything that happens along the way, now answer my business question, it's going to decide that your logging isn't actually necessary for it to answer your business question and skip that step. And so creating sub-agents where they have like a more narrowly defined requirement and telling the main agent, you're not allowed to do this until the sub-agent is done, that kind of stuff allows you to enforce those kind of work streams.
Do you think that a session can be poisoned? Do you ever like get in a session and it went the wrong direction and now you got it realigned, but it keeps like referring back to like this bad path that it took earlier in the session?
Yeah, I can give you like a really concrete example of that. We have an analytics product called Sherlock that does really deep research into customer data. We're going to be launching this thing in another month or two.
Cool.
And if you want to know how deep the geekery goes, there are aspects of it. Like Moriarty is the devil's advocate of Sherlock. His job is to look at every conclusion that Sherlock reaches about your inquiry and then say, oh, you made that's got a low end problem. So the confidence is really low. It's the confidence check kind of thing. Sure. There are other, like Hudson, Mrs. Hudson has a job. There's a lot
so you built devil's advocate literally into your product.
Correct.
It's everywhere. It's literally everywhere.
Well, and it's there because the user isn't able to be the devil's advocate when working with it if they aren't an expert. So that's why it's there.
Sure.
Nonetheless, one of the things that Sherlock does is you start, again, the metaphor here goes deep. You start an investigation that's part of a case. So you start a case. You're like, I want to go and answer the question about, hey, did our location launch go well? And then you might have 4 or 5 different investigations that are part of that project. And the investigations can share their knowledge with subsequent investigations. So if investigation 1 says, oh, this totally worked. Investigation 2 might be a different business question, but we wanted to make it so that you didn't have to go rerun a bunch of the same research to answer a subsequent investigation question if a prior investigation in that case already answered it. Let's imagine that investigation A answered the question, did a lot of people join your loyalty program as part of launching the location? And investigation B was going to go ask a question about what percentage of loyalty members who joined became regular customers. Well, you don't need the second investigation to go rerun the same thing from the first one. However, if the first investigation reached a bad conclusion, you spoiled the whole bunch. And so it's definitely totally possible to poison, the subsequent work if it can see the error. It's just like my kid when she does math. If she's like screws up on a line up here, it ruins the rest of the problem.
That's like a poisoned memory.
Yeah, it's very much
like
so.
Literally, it's like a memory that you're not quite sure if it's fact or not. And I think that's one of the reasons I don't like memory, which we talked about on past episodes. But like I have definitely come across this multiple times where I've seen it kind of go off track. And I bring it back, and then in my head, I'm like, this session's poisoned. And sometimes I'll run handoff, or sometimes I'll just exit and start anew. And it's just like, look, if I had to correct it or it went too far off path, something sent it there. And that you can't eliminate that, from the context window. So you just start anew. And I think this is something that happened to me all the time a year and a half ago when I was using ChatGPT and the context windows were much smaller, these sessions would get poisoned with an idea because there just wasn't a big enough memory for you to actually bring it back. And so now it's something I watch for all the time. And I think as people get started in it, like if you can have a little bit of eye for that, that can help keep those sessions cleaner and help prevent those hallucinations and those kind of like early use cases where it's like, well, I tried this and it didn't work. I think this idea of a poisoned session is something that when you're getting started, it's a good thing to have an eye out for.
Well, I think that this is where, like, one of the things that, you know, we all don't enjoy is when you run out of context window.
That never happens anymore. There's a million token context windows
Well,
now,
right,
Aaron.
but you've actually just highlighted a problem with that, which is that the bigger the context window, the the more likely it is that some aspect of it will create, let's say, a long-running influence that you don't want to be there.
Yeah.
I think that there's a different approach that works really well with Claude Code, which is I'm going to have really short sessions with you, the output of which is you will produce documentation that my next session will read to continue the conversation. And so there's a couple of benefits from that. One is if I'm clearing the context window and starting afresh with documentation that's on disk, I spend a lot less money. If you have 999,000 tokens in the context window and you have not yet hit a million, the $1 million token barrier, if you asked it to put a period at the end of the sentence it just gave you, it must read all 999,000 tokens in order to put that period there. So every single character and token it creates, it must read them all again. So it can burn through a lot of money. But the second reason is that when you have that large context window, you now are working in a memory space that is full of a lot of stuff. All the corrections you told it, like, no, don't go that way, go this way, that thing's still in there. If instead what you said was, don't go that way, go this way. Now write that down in a document, clear session, read that document, and let's continue our conversation. You you kind of prune out a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, I do a ton of that now. That's definitely like, and it shows up in different ways, whether it's literally a guide or like I'll do a learning guide. We were building out the Google Search Ads agent, and we basically had we'd almost like commit things as we learned it, to the skill. So we kind of had a separate project where I could have multiple sessions, log the different things that we did. And when we found something good or found something that worked or hardened something, that got actually put to the skills. So you almost have this separate one that you were kind of using a bit more as your source of truth. And that way, as you were going through the actual project, you could really start and stop and keep those sessions clean.
Well, I think that the durability of your work and to me, the combination is every interaction with Claude produces an output that gets turned into a file that is checked into Git. One of my Claude MD rules is every time that you take a turn, which I define as you take an instruction of mine and you go produce a work product, and then you come back to me and say that you've done it, you will create a Git commit in the folder in which we're working. Now I have infinite undo. So yeah.
One of the things that it's helped me do is it's just helped me get stuff done faster to actually do the actual work. So when you kind of have and this is I've done this a lot recently with skills, but you're almost committing to the skill as the things are actually right. So now the session where I actually use the skill is so much shorter.
Yeah.
Invoke the skill, ask the question, either get the answer, the output, deliver the actual outcome, like the Google search ad one, run the / command, invoke it, say it's this customer, automatically runs the analysis, gives me here the changes I would make. I say make changes 1, 2, and 3. Now it's actually done the work. And so I think that now we've got an outcome that it's really based off of all right, we changed the ads. Did we make more money?
Yeah.
Right? Did we bring more dollars to it? So I do think that one of the things that this kind of series of work, it's kind of burn all these sessions to get stuff right, have your source of truth, and then use that source of truth to actually get the work done and have the output.
I mean, we could go really deep here. When I think about how I work with Claude now, I have a whole end-to-end work stream that is all about creating these artifacts. I think when Claude produces a document about what your intention and goals are, and then it builds a document about a plan on how to execute those goals. And then when it executes the plan, it creates, a document that describes what the truth is supposed to be as a result of the change. And then it executes the change and creates tests to make sure that those things are true. All of those things make it so that really big projects can maintain coherence.
How do you make a business argument for that, right? Because you're talking about a lot of different steps. So it
Mhm.
means you're burning more tokens,
It's
Aaron.
true. It's true. I mean, this is kind of a broader question, which is, we've empowered our entire team to burn tokens. Thanx's AI bill every month is easily the cost of an employee, so we didn't hire someone as a result. But what we did was we, in theory, accelerated, 100 people,
Right.
75 people
Do you,
with
do you,
that money. And so then there does come a moment where you have to say, am I getting what I paid for?
do you think restaurants go through the same thing?
I spent a lot of time at RLC and at our customer
Oh
advisory
yeah,
board.
I got to ask you about RLC. You were just smoozing it up with the biggest restaurant brands. You were on stage. You were talking to them. They were sitting down at the table and asking you questions.
That is all
You
true,
know,
which was weird because normally when I go to these things, no one knows who I am and no one talks to me.
I have a
And that's fine.
real quick before you answer this, actually like helpful. I have a much more important question. Did you
Uh,
shave the beard before RLC
it
or
was
after?
before. Yeah, actually, there's a funny moment where one of my boot camp attendees from early on, I walked up to her at Mertech and I had the beard and I was like,
Yeah.
hey Kim. And and she looked at me and she was clear she did not know who I was. And she's like, who the hell are you? And I was like, it's Aaron. And she was like, oh my God, because I had this big beard.
And then she said, "Can I have your autograph?"
I saw her again at RLC and she was just like, oh, thank God, it's you again. I met your
Oh,
doppelganger.
and also for those who don't know, RLC Restaurant Leadership Conference,
Yeah.
Mertech Multi-Unit Restaurant Executive Conference. These are big trade shows that happen
Yeah.
every year. Restaurant executives, C-suite, VPs, directors, IT, marketing. A lot of groups kind of go there to learn more about what's going on in the industry.
Okay.
So Aaron was a big celebrity at one of them.
Yeah, it is weird that people recognize me at trade shows now. It's very strange. But to answer your question, I was talking to a lot of customers, a lot of restaurants about how they're trying to traverse this ground. They aren't tech startups. And so they don't have a mindset of we're just going to create a budget to just throw at helping our
Right.
staff get really good at this. And I would say it really runs the gamut. I talked to people who felt like they were in an organization that did not just give them what they needed to go and get really good at this stuff. And then I talked to CEOs who were like, my CFO is over there saying, dude, we're spending a lot of money on this. And I'm like, I know, but we're going to make it work. We got to go get our staff ready, to be competitive. And so this is an investment we're making. I don't think that anybody has a really strong handle on truly making individuals in the organization accountable for the amount that they're burning. But I feel it as an individual that I want to be accountable for what I'm making. And so to me, I'm burning tokens for one of three purposes. I'm either doing it to learn something. I might throw the whole thing away, but I'm learning how to do stuff. And so I'm accelerating my own growth. Two is I'm eliminating something from my job or not having to hire someone to do something that I would otherwise not do at all. And that's accelerating me as an individual. And the third one is that I'm building something that accelerates teams or the whole organization. And the more I can do that last one, where I build something that lots of people use, the more I feel like I'm definitely creating value. So to me, that's like the biggest indicator is that someone uses tokens to do something that other people use. That's like a multiplying value.
Yeah. I mean, that's how you get the lift. That's how you get like the big 10x ROI that everybody wants to do with their businesses, whether you're a restaurant or a tech company, right? When you can enable others to do their job more effectively, like better, faster, cheaper. I think though that at least for us, like, as a business, like there's only a few, like our product does really one thing. It helps make restaurants more dollars. And so like when we burned a bunch of tokens on, building this Google Ads agent, all right, cool. Well, this restaurant made, we tripled their, dollars from $1,000 to $3,000 in a week, based off of Google Ads on the same spend. Like it's really easy to draw that line.
Mm-hmm.
But then you go kind of one layer further away and it's like, okay, well, we enabled this team to be able to do our QA QC 5 times faster, which means we can do 5 times as many customers and we can kind of prove quality, which means there's going to be less potential issues. I can't draw a straight line to it, but I know that's a better customer experience. That one's pretty good. And then you go a step further and now it's the learning thing, right? That's like a third. A third of the tokens I burn are for me learning something either by doing, by reading, by research. Like I use a lot of tokens just to learn. That's one of the things I do the most. And then you do even one step further and it's adoption. someone has to burn tokens so that they can learn how to use them in the future. And so I never, especially like at the very beginning, like it's $100 or $200 a month product. Like I don't care what you do using the tokens on, just fucking burn them. Because I know that every token that you burn is getting one step closer to getting over that hump where you have the unlock and now you can see what it can do. And every time I've seen someone have that moment where they're both a little bit scared and also a little bit excited, like all of a sudden the output goes and they start building stuff I never would have thought of and they built it better. And I think that's when you really start to get it. So, I mean, at the very front end, if someone's new to it, I think tokens are burned just for the sake of getting adoption. Then it's for the sake of learning. Now it's for the sake of improving just quality and quality of life for customers, for employees. And then you can tie it to it. I just think that that is the life cycle I see so like us go through so constantly.
I agree. The number of tokens I burned just to learn how not to do things, it's a lot. One thing that I see in our engineering team, and you actually, you inspired me to do this. I burned a lot of tokens doing something that you were already doing. Is just building software to manage my to-do list and my time. Like I wasn't doing that at all until you convinced me to go do it. But like software engineers are pretty much all of the software engineers around me are doing one of two things as a side hustle, usually with the tokens their company gives them. They're either building some sort of harness to manage multiple coding agents of their own. So they can run 10, 20 agents at a time, and they're building something to help them manage that noise. Or they're building something to help them manage pull requests. Like every software engineer is building a tool to do pull requests faster, kind of thing.
Yep. Well, that's the new bottleneck.
But the point is that you throw this thing at your biggest wasted time, effort, pain, for someone who is going to go and build lots of marketing messages. They might go teach an agent to create emails, to design emails, to take a single piece of creative and some style guide stuff and build 20 different versions of the exact same thing for different audiences. They're going to do it poorly at first. And so it's a learning tool first. Solve your own problems. When you get to the point where you're good at solving your problems and you can solve a team's worth of problems is when you start getting compounding impact. But I'll give you one more.
Okay.
At some point, there'll be someone on your team, and this is probably already happening for you, but there's someone on your team who understands a problem space better than anyone else. And they are the best person to go and try and design a solution for it, even if they don't have the skill. And so the result is our customer service people are building the tools that help our customers build strategy documents. And as the product owner, I'm over there looking at what they're building and like, they have all the right ideas. They just don't know how to turn it into enterprise software, but that's okay. We're going to take those great ideas and turn them into enterprise software.
That is as a big thing for me. We actually had this discussion at our board meeting. Oh, by the way, slide decks are dead. And my last board meeting, we did not use a slide deck. We did not use PowerPoint. We did not use Google Slides. We used AI to create a real presentation. It was HTML with one caveat. Most everybody just used the PDF that it generated.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Smeeze. So we talked about this. This is a couple of my board members are on boards of lots of other tech companies, and everyone's talking about how AI is doing this. And we had this conversation about how Smeeze, a subject matter expert, is kind of like the future. Like the ones who really understand the problem space, the ones who are in it every day, they are going to be the ones that can design the best parts of the solution to solve those problems. And so what AI ends up doing is it knocks down a lot of previous barriers to those subject matter experts. Totally. And now these subject matter experts are actually empowered to take their solutions much further than they could before. For example, like our graphic designer now, when she makes a change in Figma, she can take that all the way to deploying to the actual live website. Mm-hmm. We were able to eliminate a lot of those barriers along the way. And she can make sure that the padding is exactly right, the round corner, the copy. The one who's closest to actually building the most detail is now the one that can actually take it and check it a lot further, eliminating those games of telephone, making her much more powerful than she was before, but also improving the quality of the output that you get at the end.
So I have a couple of different flavors of this, because I do agree that the person who's closest to the customer or the problem is going to come up with the most, let's say, the solution that is most aligned with that customer, but they might not be able to imagine a solution that's like truly revolutionary. They're going to see an iterative step that could be made, but they might not be the same person that comes up with the question of maybe we don't even need a website anymore or whatever. And so when I think about it, I think that there's a couple of different, let's say, magical compositions that go into making a successful business, and I think this is true for most businesses. So I agree that there is subject matter experts that are irreplaceable and a key part of the, identifying the problem space and ideating on solutions. I also think that there's enormous value right now in generalists, in people who are good at abstracting a problem. So they see you're over here fighting that dragon and you're over there fighting this dinosaur. And I'm like, wait a minute, you both are solving the same problem, even though you have your own thing that you're fighting. I'm going to create a single tool that kills those things for you. And by only building it once, I create efficiency and value. And so I think the generalists and abstractionists are really actually very hard to find, but they are superhuman with this technology because they can kind of go do anything if they can get understanding of the problem space from that subject matter expert. And Thanx, that's very much our CTO. It's me. Our teams tend to focus on solving a problem in front of them within the constraints that they're used to. And it's the founders who show up and just completely drop a grenade into the middle of the whole thing and turn it upside down. And that's not something that individual contributors often feel licensed to do.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely true. But I think it can start for me. I think it's a 90-10 rule. Like, I think a generalist can go in and get 90% of it right, but the Smee is going to get that final 10% that really makes it good because it has those details. Or you can flip it the other direction and the Smee can get 90% because they've got all the details and all these things, but they don't quite know how it fits into the bigger picture. And a generalist helps do it. But I also think two Smees might be able to do that. Like, I do that a lot where I can either play that last 10% role or do the first 90% role. I struggle when I need to do both, but I've brought some things to the table, and then my CTO has been, kind of picked out those last few things to really make it adopted by the team. And likewise, I've taken something my COO has created and been able to kind of do that last 10%. So I think that the Smees, I think they get more of the benefit because I think it was harder for them to be the 90% in the past. Whereas, the founder, the generalist, like, they've always been able to do that. So I think that, I think I agree with you. I just think that there's a bigger shift for the Smees in particular. And I think that creatives in particular are more empowered than they ever have been.
So I think that there's like an interesting concept of where boundaries between different work and functions gets really porous. And before I talk about that, I'm just going to make a sidebar here and say, I don't call them Smees. All I can think about is like the fat pirate in Peter Pan. Whenever I hear you say Smee, I don't know why, but I always just
I'm not up to speed on my Peter Pan nomenclature. Who is Smee the name of a character in Peter Pan?
He's like Captain Hook's bumbling idiot sidekick. Smee.
So the exact opposite of a subject. Wait, is there a subject though that Smee knows really well?
He knows Captain Hook really well. That's it. Okay. All right. Anyway, back to where we were. All right. So porous boundaries. What I see happening is people who have like really strong ownership over a part of your product or your process. Let's say design. Let's take design.
Yeah.
If they are tasked with being the only person who gets to own what something looks like in a world where they're surrounded by everybody else who's going way, 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 way faster with their work, but they have a dependency on design, they will quickly become a bottleneck. The same thing is true when the thing that we're talking about software engineering, or if you're marketing and you got to go create messaging for something and the whole business is going faster and you become the bottleneck, it's a very uncomfortable position to be in. What I see is the transition from people who have the current ownership over a discipline, shifting their role into, my job is to make it safe for people who don't work in this discipline to contribute to it. So the designer owns the design language so that Sterling, who maybe has no design sense whatsoever, can tell Claude, make me a new page for our website that tells this story. And Claude says, well, let me use the design language the designer put a lot of energy into so that it also has the right padding and font and everything. Likewise, our engineers right now are busily creating more and more and more insulation because they're getting pull requests from non-engineers now. Like our CEO wrote a pull request. He has 0 commits to our production environment. The only way that commit has a prayer of becoming production code is if the environment that he is sending a pull request to has a ton of resilience. And so I'm just saying, like, everyone now can be anything, only works if you invest in the system of making.
What a terrifying world when CEOs are.
It is pretty scary.
Our non-technical CEOs are writing code, which I put
I don't know if
myself
he
in that
actually got
bucket
that
as
pull
well.
request through. But our designer did. Our designer
I'm sure
stuff.
there's probably a little merge conflict. You send them some comments, have them put it back.
Right.
We'll get that through.
Well, I don't know about the one that Zach submitted. I do know that our designer is now submitting, like, the engineers will build something. He won't be happy with how something lays out or whatever, the padding, the margin, the words on the page. Rather than sending them bugs to go and do more work before we release it, he just checks out the branch, makes changes with Claude, sends a new pull request. The engineers review it and fix anything that needs to be tidied up, and then it's into the code base. That collaboration of porous boundaries is something that goes faster when everybody is empowered by having Claude in their pocket.
100%. All right, Aaron, this has been a good episode. We talked about the difference between agent skills, guides, apps, scripts, the ability of kind of when to use context separation, the whole idea of poison sessions. We also took a look at really tying what AI tokens actually get used for, whether it's adoption or learning, or quality of life improvements, or the ultimate kind of P&L dollars, profit, sales. And then we talked about Smees, which are not the character from Peter Pan,
Correct.
but instead subject matter experts and how much more they can be empowered when they get not just on Claude Code, but also have the systems and the processes around them to support the flow. Anything else you want to add before we sign off for today?
Yeah. If there's anything you heard in today's conversation that didn't make a lick of sense, just ask Claude.
And if you want Aaron's beard back, please join me in a petition that I'll be starting up. Bring back Aaron's beard. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Sterling.